While I'm not the one to choose to watch a horror movie or read a spooky book, I actually love a good horror game. The bar-setting remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 4 are fantastic. Alan Wake 2's unconventional storytelling was incredibly suspenseful and memorable, and my favorite spooky experiences come from passing the controller around with a room of friends trying to keep my characters alive in games like Until Dawn or The Quarry. The thing is, while I'm a fan of dreadful atmosphere, creepy ambiance, and shocking, disgusting character designs, I don't really play these games by myself, and can only stomach the anxiety of good horror if I'm experiencing it alongside other people in the room. That's why I'm so excited after playing Little Nightmares 3 for nearly 2 hours. The third entry in Bandai Namco's horror puzzle platformer series is designed to be a completely cooperative 2-player adventure, though it can be played solo if you like. And based on the level I played, it's shaping up to fit the same niche as puzzly co-op classics like Split Fiction and Unravel 2. To be fair, Little Nightmares 3 isn't nearly as scary as your traditional rated M horror game anyways. It's surreal, fantastical horror made from the stuff of children's nightmares. The level my co-op partner and I played had us sneaking through a haunted carnival filled with giant blob-like people waiting in line for carnival games, stuffing their faces with apples, and carelessly whacking what appeared to be one of their own kind with sticks like a piñata. It's a delightfully unsettling, rich atmosphere, and in my conversation with Little Nightmares 3 producer Coralie Finiello, who also served as associate producer on Little Nightmares 2, she talked about how the Little Nightmares games are built to star children in a world that's not made for them. The carnival level really nailed that feeling as we climbed through vents, boosted each other up to open doors, and avoided oversized monsters in an unfamiliar, unwelcoming place. We played as Lo and Alone, the two new protagonists being introduced in Little Nightmares 3. The pair is looking for a path that could lead them out of the nowhere. I controlled Alone, a young girl with pigtails and an aviator helmet who comes equipped with a wrench, while my partner was Lo, a young boy who wears a crow mask and uses a bow and arrow. Our two different tools led to combat encounters where Lo needed to shoot an arrow at an undead creature charging toward us, and I would finish the job by pulverizing the decapitated head with my wrench before the animated headless body took one of us out. This required constant communication, and while the instant death for any mistake felt a little frustrating throughout our demo, generous checkpoints kept us motivated to achieve the perfect run. The controls for all of this are fairly simple, which is another reason Little Nightmares 3 is setting up to be a great choice to play with a partner or friend who may not be as familiar with games. Most actions are performed with just a couple of buttons, and the difficulty comes in through communication and the intensity of doing everything exactly right as you're being chased around like an unwanted mouse in a large house. Little Nightmares 3 also seamlessly weaves its world into its puzzle design. In one room, we needed to move a box to use it as a platform to climb higher, and the crate available to us was one component of the classic sawing a person in half magic trick. Only this time, there was no magic involved, and the victim was ripped right in half, and as we pulled the box away, their guts unceremoniously spilled onto the floor. Moments like that really sell Little Nightmares 3's unique art style that combines claymation-like models with dense, moody lighting. The way light creeps into a dark room through a lone window is striking, and the outdoor segments where the carnival is the only illumination against a rainy, pitch-black backdrop creates a very memorable atmosphere. The carnival is just one chapter in Little Nightmares 3, and I'm excited to see how its visuals translate to completely different settings across the full game. I should point out that this was my first experience with the Little Nightmares series. Outside of researching ahead of this preview event, I never played the first two, which were developed by Tarsier Studios. In 2019, Tarsier Studios was acquired by Embracer Group, and they're now working on Reanimal, a very Little Nightmares-esque game set to release next year, and which itself is also leaning hard into co-op. Bandai Namco retained the Little Nightmares franchise in the transaction, and have partnered with Supermassive Games on this third entry. That's the studio behind horror games like Until Dawn and The Quarry that I mentioned earlier. In my conversation with Finiello, I asked what changes longtime fans of the series should expect from Little Nightmares 3, and she said Supermassive worked hard to understand the DNA of the originals while also bringing in their own passion for the universe. And she said co-op was the most highly requested feature from the Little Nightmares community, which led to Bandai Namco's decision to build the sequel around that idea. While my impression so far of Little Nightmares 3 is without the context of the originals, I can safely say I really enjoyed my time with this one, and it got me interested in checking out the whole franchise for what that's worth. It will utilize a Friends Pass system too, where only one player needs to buy a copy of the game to play online with a friend on the same platform. And for any solo players out there, you can play Little Nightmares 3 alone with an AI companion instead of another person, with Finiello noting that they worked hard to balance the experience for single player as well. Having never played a Little Nightmares game before, I was really fascinated by the world design and scope of creating levels that feel oppressive without ever losing a grounded sense of scale. So I asked about what goes into crafting each level around the established characters, and Finiello told me if you create a room that's too big for the characters, it just doesn't feel good. It's about balancing the big vistas of the world outside and the sense of oppression and claustrophobia when you're indoors, while still making the residents you interact with feel overwhelmingly large. With that context in mind, as I played through the carnival, I felt the push and pull of that balance. When I was outside, I almost let out a sigh of relief as we tiptoed to the next area. And when the camera panned indoors after we squeezed through a small gap, I tensed up, not knowing what awaited me within the walls. We also got split up for a brief section where my partner was locked in a cage and needed to make noise to distract the man while I worked on setting him free. After several failed attempts, we finally escaped unscathed, and I left feeling excited to see the other intense scenarios Little Nightmares 3 will drop us into in the full game. Little Nightmares 3 arrives on October 10th for all major platforms. For more from the world of horror games, check out our recent preview of Resident Evil Requiem, and for everything else, stick with IGN.